Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar for the NiSource Charitable Foundation Fund for Merrimack Valley. I am Carol Lavoy Schuster. If folks could please go ahead and put yourselves on mute, that would be wonderful. And this is the second webinar that we've hosted for this fund. And it's really just an opportunity for us to share more about this grant opportunity and create space and dialogue with a recording that you can go back and watch, even though we do welcome you to follow up directly with me if you have questions.
Training? You want a training?
Just a gentle reminder, if folks can go ahead and put yourselves on mute, we would appreciate that. Thanks. We'll just be letting folks in as the call proceeds. Davina, you can advance the slide. Okay. Like I said, I'm Carol Lavoy Schuster with ECCF. I do oversee this fund. I am an advisor on the fund and act as the program officer for the fund. But today we're going to the content of the presentation. It's really quite short. It's probably 10 to 15 minutes. And then I like to leave the majority of the time for Q&A. Historically, these calls wrap up, within the half hour or so, leaving you with plenty of time to get back to your day. But just in case you do have extra questions, we can stay until 12 should you need to ask additional questions. I'll give a little bit of an overview of the fund, talk about the committee, the timeline, eligibility, the funding, and then we'll leave time for Q&A. Davina, you can advance the slide. Okay, great. Okay. In September of 2018, there was a gas explosion in 3 communities of Andover, Lawrence, and North Andover, Massachusetts. And this fund was created in direct response to the gas explosions and the impact on the 3 communities due to that, due to the explosion. The NiSource Charitable Foundation Fund, NiSource is the parent company for what was Columbia Gas. And the fund was actually established in January of 2020 as a field of interest fund here at ECCF, Essex County Community Foundation. And we have now completed 4 cycles as of June of 2024. I'll talk a little bit more about the funding in a moment. Applicants can apply for grants between 25 to 200,000 per that application. I'll talk about this in a moment too. That can be spread over multiple years. And the fund is designed to support explicitly the 3 communities that were impacted by the explosions. There are 5 key pillars, and these are actually the pillars of the NiSource Charitable Foundation, which NiSource is the utility in Ohio and now the parent company. These are the 5 pillars of the foundation and have remained intact in terms of the impact of this fund in the region. Basic needs and hardship assistance, which is inclusive of food, shelter, social determinants of health, and mental health. Economic and workforce development, which includes retention and attraction of job opportunities, energy infrastructure, and community vitality. Environmental stewardship, which includes protection and restoration of natural resources, energy conservation, and environmental education. Safety, which is inclusive of emergency assistance and disaster preparedness, first aid, safety education, and energy safety. And lastly, STEM and energy education, which includes science, technology, engineering, math, and energy education. The committee is comprised of a really wonderful and diverse representation, primarily of community leaders, business owners, nonprofit leaders, longtime community leaders, as well as 3 NiSource executives and 1 Eversource representative. The community members are all really deeply involved in the community. If folks can go ahead and put themselves on mute, that would be great. In many, many ways, economically, socially, educationally, and it's a wonderful, committed group of community leaders, many of whom have been here, lived here raised their children here, have their families here for many generations. I am also the program officer on the fund as well as an advisor, and helped to establish the fund. I was very involved in the response efforts of the crisis when our organization, ECCF, was tapped by former Governor Charlie Baker to lead the response efforts in terms of the philanthropic dollars that were pushed out. And I led the residential recovery efforts. And so it made a lot of sense for me to be both a program officer and an advisor on the fund. Timeline. The fund opened, or the opportunity to apply opened on November 18th. We've had 2 sessions. This is the second webinar session, but again, we welcome any opportunity to have a phone, Zoom, or an email exchange if you're curious to learn, if you have specific, questions. After today's call, January 15th is the deadline at 5 p.m. There will be no late applications accepted, unfortunately. And then between February and early March, we work as an advisory group to review all of the applications and invite those that would move into the site visit round. Between March and April, we have mostly virtual site visits. We do have the opportunity to be in person for all the community leaders and myself to meet in person. However, the NiSource representatives are in Ohio, where the company is based. And then by the end of May, our goal is to make the grant awards. Davina, you can go ahead and begin. No. One more back, please. Great. For eligibility, your organization, you must be a 501c3 organization. If in the instance that you have fiscal agencies are fine, where you are borrowing someone else's 501c3, or if you're in partnership with a municipality, it would have to be one of the 3 municipalities impacted by the gas explosions. And they must have the lead organization, the lead applicant, be a nonprofit. There is a strong preference and priority based on organizations headquartered in one of the 3 communities. However, if it's demonstrable that your impact is in one or all 3 or 2 of the communities, the advisors will certainly allow a submission. Great. So the total commitment of NiSource was to make it was over 5 years, $10 million distributed to the region. And as I said at the top of the call, each applicant can apply for a grant between 25 to 200. Now those can be spread over multi-years. In the last 2 years, you could spread it over 3, but now the advisors have decided it would have to be spread no more than 2 years. And it would be, if you were awarded the grant, it would really be up to the organization how it was spread out. So if, for example, if you got a $200,000 grant and you chose to have it 100 and 100, that could be it, or 50 and 150, however you choose to have it split up. Applicants can apply for, so there were the 5 key pillars, but then within that, you can apply for general operating support, new programming, or ongoing programming. So those are the 3 sort of subcategories within the applicant cycle. You may only apply for 1 application per year. However, if you have in previous cycles received a grant, so say, for example, you received a grant 2 years ago for a new program, you could apply again. It would just have to be in a new category, one of the 5 different pillars or a different subcategory.
I have a question. Oh, are you not taking questions now?
If you could just give me one moment to wrap up.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Trisha. If you could go ahead and put yourself on mute, that would be great. Yeah, so then any questions, you can reach out to myself. I'll also encourage you to always make sure that you include my colleague Davina so that we don't miss anything. or leave a voicemail if you have additional questions. You can always call my cell phone as well. It is my personal cell phone. It is on my tagline. I just do request that prior to calling or texting, you just book a time with me, and that it's only during business hours. So Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Okay, so we'll go ahead and I'll wrap that up, and we'll open it up for Q&A. Davina, if you wouldn't mind sharing the screen just so I can see the hands. Okay, go ahead, Tricia.
So when you said if you've received a grant prior, it has to be in a new category or subcategory. When you say subcategory, do you mean like program versus operating, or do you mean within like economic and workforce development, it has to be, something different?
The former example you gave.
Okay. Okay.
And I will note that I see quite a number of our friends across the county who are in other regions, and we welcome you to join any of our open calls. But as a reminder, you must have direct work in one of the 3 communities to be applicable to this fund. The priority is an organization's based in one of the 3 communities, but not a requirement. So say you're in Boston, say your headquarters are in Boston, but you are doing a program in Lawrence, that would be allowable as long as it's demonstrable that you have a relationship there and are doing work there.
Might I ask a question?
Yes, would you mind just giving your name and your organization, please?
Sure. My name is John Rice. I'm Director of Development at St. Anne's Homewood School out here in Methuen.
Mhm.
And while we service Andover, North Andover, Lawrence, in fact, we service pretty much every community in Massachusetts. Those are 3 of the communities that we service. We were on the edge of that gas disaster right here in Methuen with 150 living here. So we're anxious to get some further planning here. How critical is the number of people that are served from those communities? We do have residential and day school kids from all 3 of those communities. It's certainly not going to come up to 50% of our population. I don't even know if it's going to come up to 20%, but how critical is that in the process?
It's pretty critical because I think in this instance, it would be fine. If you want to send me an email with a little bit more detail, because I know your organization, you've done a lot of great work. You've been funded through the summer fund for many years in Lawrence. So I know your numbers are in the 3 communities, but the fund is explicitly for those three towns. So the people that are living in those 3 towns.
I have a question too about reapplying for a grant. Just to verify, like, let's say we apply for a 2-year grant. So if we if we would like decide to reapply for a different program category, does it have to be after the 2 years then, or can it be still the next year?
It could still be within.
So it can be, we still can have, like, let's say like we apply this year for a 2-year grant. If we would get it, we could apply next year for a different category, not after 2 years, right?
That is correct. Yes, I will, as a reminder, this is the last year.
Oh, that's the last year. Okay, then we can.
Yes. Yeah, this will be year 5.
All right, thanks.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to look in the chat. I see a couple of questions came up in the chat while we were talking. So I see Maria from HBAN. Hi, Maria. LOI needs to be done online. The budget, when I log in the application, actually. So the application and the LO, those are interchangeable. The application is the LOI. I apologize if that's confusing. The budget needs to be included. Yes, so you need to include your budget in your application. Yes. And then Kate from Merrimack, getting over a cold. Oh, thank you for that catch, Kate. Yes, that was a change the advisors made, confirming it is 2 years. It is only 2 years. Yes, thank you.
Hi, Carol. I have a question. It's okay to jump in.
Hi, Kenny.
Long time no
It's been a
see.
long time.
I know. Hope you're well. Today on this call, I'm wearing my hat for work with in control crash prevention. So yeah, my question I was about to put in the chat, but I'll just shout it out here. I noticed sort of safety education is sort of called out as an interest area. Can you provide any more detail as to what type of safety education, or is it pretty broad?
It is pretty broad, but I think that the experience for the residents in the three communities and the municipalities and anyone sort of residing within the region was so impacted by the explosions and the need to mass evacuate that any sort of response efforts pertaining to crisis response would likely be the priority, but I think that they're certainly open to it. Any sort of different interpretations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, because it was actually pretty remarkable that they were able to evacuate 3 massive communities like that in the rapid pace that they were able to, thanks to the people in the communities. And so the company is, interested in continuing to make sure that they support those types of supports.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to bounce back and forth here to the chat, and then we'll, have folks. I'll do 2 here from the chat, and then we'll do a raise of hands. So I've got Alex from Village Food Hub. We applied and were declined last year. Can we receive feedback on the decline to help determine if? Yes, absolutely. Yes, Alex, always. And we're actually very proactive in making sure that we remind folks that they can set up a time with us. And then if awarded, can we still apply for other? Yes, absolutely. Other ECCF opportunities. Yes, absolutely. You may also apply. I will note though, Alex, that the deadline is popping up soon. We can be as responsive to the timing as possible. You can email myself and Davina. Davina is my colleague here on the line as well. We'll send a thank you out after with our contact information, so that we can get something booked quickly if you need to do a call. And then we have Jen from Friends of North Andover Senior Center. How important it is that the grant fund all 3 communities? I can open programming up to the other 2 communities, but I can't control how many people from Andover will be in the area of disaster planning. I would not encourage you to expand your scope of programming based on the funding, would just be my primary recommendation in terms of, chasing the dollars, or it's not required that you have all 3, but if you had a program that did serve all 3, that would be very interesting to the fund. And I would not encourage you to expand it just for this fund, if does that make sense, Jennifer? So if, for example, you are just serving North Andover, then that is your programming. However, if you know that your programming is also serving Andover and Lawrence, then I would encourage you to include that in your proposal. Jennifer, was that a sufficient answer to your question? I just can't see my screen, so I can't see I can see some people's faces, but if you could just give me a thumbs up in the chat, or. Okay, great. Thanks, Jennifer. So I'll take one more and then I'm going to go back to the screen. So we have Ben from Neighbors Table. Hi, Ben. Per John's question regarding service numbers in the target community, can you provide some insight on how that described? Can you provide some insight on how the application should look if we are describing a program or initiative? Would we include the prospective number of people? Yes, there actually is a question. If you have not looked at the application yet, I would highly encourage you to do so. There actually is a question and it breaks down the 3 communities. How many in each of the communities? So, does that answer your question, Ben? Okay, great. Beth, I see that your question is next. I'm just going to pop back to the screen though, if there's other folks that have their hands up that I've missed. Let's see, I have Sarah is the first one I'm seeing. Sarah, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Sarah Arsenal, Grants Officer with Mass Audubon. We applied in 2021 for a 2-year grant and gratefully were awarded. In subsequent cycles, we were declined, and I'm wondering if it might be the category stipulation. We applied under natural resource environmental education priority and have done so again in subsequent cycles for program support rather than operating support. So a follow-up on Trisha's question, I just want to make sure I understand. Can we apply again this year under environmental education for that same program? It would be our Lawrence programming, but as general operating, or should we be looking at a different environmental education program?
Good question. And it is, well, so in your instance, so a general operating grant is just a general operating grant. So that would be different enough that you could apply. But categorically, it's a general operating grant, right? So that is your organization's program. So to answer your question, yes, you may apply with a general operating grant.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
A different category than what you received a grant for.
Okay, great. So still under environmental education, but as general operating for all of our Lawrence programming.
Yes.
Maybe. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Let's see if we've got other hands up that I'm not seeing. I don't see other hands up, but let's see. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the chat here. All right, Beth from the Y. Hi, Beth. Merrimack Valley Y received funding for our food insecurity program last year for Lawrence and Andover. Since we received funding for our food program, could we apply for our SRO, or is that still seen as the same priority? Pardon me, Beth, I'm not sure I know what SRO acronym stands for. Pop that in the chat or.
Hi there. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, great. The single room occupancy, so it's
Yeah.
housing for unhoused men in
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yes.
But
Yes.
that would have to be then, though, not general operating support. It would have to be program support.
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Ron from Top Notch Scholars. And the question is, we prepare teens for careers and work in college through internships with business, banks, hospital programs, such as Lawrence General. Can we apply through future workforce development? Yes, you may. And we have Madeline, you're welcome. We have Madeline asking, will the slides be shared on the website? Yes. Let's see. I have I have one person who sent a message just to me. So just to be responsive, to make sure I'm being respectful, I will respond directly to that message without sharing to the whole group. But Crystal Dixon, for organizations that have never been funded, is there a preference for general operating or program? I think in general, when you're applying for a general operating grant, it is important that the funders, in most instances, are aware of your organization. So I think in this instance, I would recommend programmatic support. But Crystal, I'm not sure what your organization is. You wouldn't mind sharing that?
Thank you. I'm with the Salvation Army, so I wasn't sure if it was better to focus in on like our food insecurity initiative or general operating.
Yes, great question. I think in this instance, we can have a follow-up conversation. You know, it's generally with general operating. You want to make sure that the funders are aware of the organization. But I'd have to look back to remind myself if you have applied before for this.
Okay.
I think in general, I would recommend programmatic.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And then other hands up for their questions.
Carol, I have my hand up.
Yes, thank you, Peter.
Peter Dalton, Esperanza Academy.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you, Carol.
Yeah.
I was with the timing, so you're looking at a decision May 25 in our fiscal year, and probably for many people is fiscal year 25 ending June 30th. Thinking about it as a 2-year grant, should it be FY 25 and 26 or 26 and 27 as far
26
as
and 27.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Even though it would be part of our fiscal year 25 distribution.
Yes.
And we can get the checks out fairly quickly, but it would, you would receive it likely in June. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Carol,
You're welcome.
I'm sorry. Hi,
Yes.
Carol, this is Mark. I had my hand up.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Mark.
Hi, I represent Forge. We're a not-for-profit that works in the startup support space. So we help companies that are starting to develop products with education and supply chain help and that sort of thing. We are throughout Massachusetts and Connecticut, but we also have a significant footprint in the Merrimack Valley, and we work with companies in Lawrence and Andover and so on. I'm just wondering if that is a good fit for this type of grant. We provide, like I said, education. If a company was trying to start a business, we help them find maybe an IP attorney or a supply chain partner to help them get started. I'm just wondering if that makes sense for this grant.
And you are a nonprofit. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the name of the
nonprofit. We are a nonprofit, yes.
Okay. I'd be interested to learn a little bit more about the networks that you have in Merrimack Valley. What's the name of the organization again?
Forge.
Like Forbes?
Forge. F-O-R-G-E, like
okay.
forging away.
Oh, gotcha. Pardon me, my hearing. I went to a few concerts over the break, so a little off. I'd be interested to learn a little more. I will say there's a robust network of support organizations for the small and mid-sized business sector in Greater Lawrence. And I'd be curious, I think it's really important that we're all always open to organizations that provide different parts of it. So I don't think I could make a specific answer at this moment until I learn a little bit more. So if you would kindly send me another email And we can have a short follow-up conversation. I can.
Yeah, happy to do that. As
Great.
long as it's not a hard no, we can continue to talk.
Oh, well, that's really up to you, based on the guidelines. It's hard for me to know, again, because I think it is important that organizations have deep relationships in the community, in any one or all three of the communities. And there's certainly so many wonderful, even though I know most of the organizations in the communities, there's certainly all sorts of that we don't know who are emergent and work in other ways. So it's hard for me to give a black or white answer
Okay, thank you.
this moment without learning a little bit more. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just kind of scanning here, or Davina, if you're seeing others that I'm missing that have their hands up.
I don't see any more hands up, but I do see some more questions in the chat.
Okay, all right, let's see, which ones did I miss? Okay, so. Yeah, so Maria, let's see, we have a question about social determinants of health and mental health. There are not specific programs that we are seeking. I think the key is that NiSource and the community leaders are really most, particularly in this last year funding, are most interested in funding, and this goes for ECCF as well, in funding initiatives that are, in response to what the community wants and not what NiSource wants. They're interested in scaling responsive efforts that are based on needs in the community. So I'm happy to learn a little bit more. I'm not sure what organization you're with, Maria. If you want to set up a separate call.
I will, yeah, with Age Span. I'm
Oh,
fairly
great.
new. Hi, Carol.
Yeah.
I've been
Oh,
here for a
wonderful.
year, and
Okay, good.
I'll reach out
Yeah,
and
good.
schedule something.
All
So
right,
thank you.
wonderful. Great, thank you. Okay, and we have a Jamie from Camp Starfish. Hey, Jamie, does the fund have a preference priority? No preference, 1 or 2 years. I think the one or the multiple year funding is a lens of a type of a trust-based philanthropy to ensure that the funding is as the organizations need, potentially spread out over multiple years. And then I have another question here from Ron. If our workforce development is a theme that runs throughout our operation, can we submit our general operating budget as opposed to, yes, you may. Question. Yeah.
I have another
Hey,
question.
Ron. Oh, okay. Yep, sure, Tricia, go ahead.
Oh, I thought I heard you say to, I don't know if it's Helena or Helena, but that it was the last year because of how the fund was set up. So would that mean then that would preclude us from applying for 2 years since this is the last year? So, oh no, okay.
No. Yeah, so the way the accounting works, frankly, I mean, it's probably a little snoozy, but the way the accounting works is that we would book the full amount this year.
Oh,
And
okay.
then, yeah, and the work of the advisors and the decision making would be complete this year.
Yes.
And then I will continue managing basically the supplemental distributions and the management of the reporting.
The following year. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good question. I think that's all the questions in the chat. I can do more scans. Lots of friends on the call, which is great. Okay, got one more question in the chat. Are there specific end goals that NiSource likes to see for workforce development? Now, again, the goal is to fund the work that is most important to the community, not to NiSource. They are most invested in what the region would like and needs for long-term sustainability. And again, I'm happy to set up, a call. I'll put Davina will send out a follow-up with our contact, but I'm gonna put in the chat our contact information again. And if you want to set up a time, it's helpful always if you, outline the specific questions. That way I can be prepared before the call, specifics. Versus just like leaving a voicemail and saying, can I call you back? Like a broad question. If you have I would encourage you to include the specific questions in the email. And let's see. And just encouraging you to, if you have questions, highly encourage you to read the application, download it, even if you don't start completing it. We have worked to streamline it, to make it as easy and accessible for you as possible. And there's something else I was going to say. And just encourage you to start your application sooner than later. Not the day of but a lot of folks tend to work outside of that and then cut and paste. Great. All right. Well, thank you for spending so much time with us today. We appreciate it. And appreciate all of your work. Thank you all